would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Here we are, folks. We've arrived at the middle of the week. I hope everything's going well for you. The winner of the $50 Amazon gift card for the month of December has been made, or the selection's been made. An email has gone out. I'm just waiting for a reply. Hopefully, that person is actually on the other end of that email, and I'll get a verification, and then we'll have a grand total of $150 that have been given out to members of the audience for supporting the show. Thank you to all of those who take the time out to take the survey. And of course, my tangible thank you to all of you out there is to do these $50 gift card handouts once a month. If you'd like to join in and potentially win next month's drawing in January, easy to do. Head on over to therebelbroker.com. Click on the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Give the same email address both times you're asked, and then answer a handful of questions. And you are in, and you will be in the running for that $50 Amazon gift card in January. So congratulations to the folks who've won so far. Hopefully the one we picked up on Monday, or the one we selected on Monday, that person's actually there. If not, we'll select another. But good luck to those who join in between now and January for your chance to win that $50 gift card. In addition to that, if you'd like to join the Rebel Underground, you can simply text the word Rebel Broker, all one word. That's the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. Follow the prompts that you'll get after that. Those prompts will basically verify for you who you're actually sending this information to. It'll be very clear. And then once you've completed that process, you are in the Rebel Underground. And just so everyone's aware, this is not, I do not sell information to anyone. So if you provide me with your email address, either through the take the survey thing where you might win the $50, or whether it's to join the Rebel Underground, or whether it's to subscribe for a newsletter, however you get your info to me, I don't care how it happens. I do not sell it or share it with anyone else. So rest assured, I'm not going to be leveraging off of the fact that you've trusted me with your email address that I'm going to be handing that off to someone else. So I don't do that. And my promise to you is I never will. So there you go. Well, we're going to revisit a subject today. For those of you who've been listening for a while, you know that I'm very fascinated by not only unemployment, since it's such a huge underpinning of the real estate world as a statistic, and we already talked about that a couple of days ago. I'm also kind of fascinated in the direction that it's going. I've made the mention before that I think we are really seeing the beginnings of an industrial revolution-sized shift in employment and how folks earn a living. And what makes it more interesting is this isn't coming when things are already robust, right? Where these are changes that are happening when there's already some challenges to be overcome in the world of employment, in terms of the types of jobs that are being created, in terms of coming to grips with a changing economy that's changing for reasons totally beyond what I'm focusing on in terms of how automation is changing the landscape of the working world. But I wanted to cover a few new news tidbits that feed into this subject. And I think that these are important warnings for folks to be aware of. And at a time when this kind of technology can move so rapidly, because we've got a combination of a variety of different factors. And I've covered these basic factors before, but what it boils down to is we're at a crossroads where the technology, the physical part of the technology that's needed in order to implement this stuff is relatively easy now. It's easy to put together. It's easy to have to build your own. If you want to see interesting examples of what folks are doing with technologies, go to things like maker fairs. I went to one last year here in the Bay Area just because I wanted to see what innovators at the absolute bottom floor, the folks who maybe don't even do this for a living, the folks who may be working as, maybe programmers at company A, or, janitors or at high school students, whatever, just stuff that they're coming up with. And when you see what folks are able to do with for a lot of you who aren't into this stuff, you may not be familiar with terms like Arduino boards and things like that. But there are folks out there automating things that you would never even imagine getting automated, and doing it in very creative ways, very inexpensively. So we've kind of crossed this threshold into a place where the physical part of it, the electronics, all the things that actually do the physical work, are easy to either come by cheaply or create using 3D printers. Plus, the software end of it is getting so dynamic now, and there are so many big businesses involved in this process of automation, in the process, whether we're talking about driving or anything else. And what's really amazing is the innovations that are made in one segment of automation oftentimes can be inherited by other offshoots in automation. So just because you're only working on, say, automating the driving process of an automobile, there are anything that moves on wheels suddenly becomes a potential benefactor of those software changes, right? It's just like we talked about before. The folks at Tesla can sell you a car today that cannot auto drive, but they're saying with a software update next year, it will be able to. So they're selling it with all of the physical bits that it needs. It just needs the software to do it effectively. So that's what makes all of this so interesting. So much of this was very time consuming, very engineering consuming, because you had to design things and build things that were very specific to an industry. And what we're finding now is that these folks can go out and innovate these things in a way that uses off the shelf stuff, does things relatively inexpensively. Now, what kind of tipped me off today, what sort of got me thinking about this today, was a story that came down about Amazon Go. Now, there's a great video of this proposition up on YouTube, and I'm going to embed that in the show notes for today's show. And I want you to take a look at it, because it's one of those things that checks all the check boxes. Initially, when you hear about this, it's like when the really big Barnes and Nobles came into your neighborhood, and maybe you got a little bit upset because the little mom and pop bookstore was going to get nudged over to the side, and you swore that you were going to keep going to that little mom and pop bookstore. Or maybe some big chain restaurant came to town, and you swore you were going to keep going to just that little locally owned restaurant. Well, like for maybe some of you were managed to stay true to that pledge. In my experience, that usually doesn't happen. Just like the Walmarts will come in and dislodge the little mom and pop shops. It just happens. It's the way things naturally progress, because it has a better value proposition. It offers you a better experience. Now, whether Amazon Go follows through with this, whether this technology now is out of the bottle, and I personally think this is what's going to happen, because there are tons of reasons to do it. It dramatically reduces the number of headcount you'd have to have in a store to support customers. And it changes it from, you could literally have a very small handful of folks working in a store like this without ever having to worry about increasing the number of folks working a shift based on when you think the rush is going to be. Because this proposal from Amazon eliminates adapting to a rush. Now, let me tell you about what they're doing. This is a and try to translate this out of the specifics. Now, they're talking about implementing this in a convenience store. But try to translate this into not thinking strictly of a convenience store. Think of anywhere that you walk into a store, buy something, or pick up something you want to buy, and then have to go to a cashier, buy it, and then walk out of the store. because that is exactly what this is going to replace. It basically creates a scenario where you as a consumer will get no lines, no cash registers, and not even a self-checkout machine. And we're going to talk about some specifics here, but in general, this is completely generically applicable. Everything that this implies. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and have the video embedded in the show notes for today's show. So you can head on over to therebelbroker.com, click on the show notes for today's show. The video will be embedded right there. If you prefer, you can go watch it on YouTube, whatever works best for you. And it gives a really good visual feeling of how the experience would go. But I think the audio gives us a really good layout as well. So I'm going to go ahead and play that right now, and then we'll discuss it.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
And that sort of wraps it up. I think it's an amazing technology. You have an app for Amazon Go that you have on your phone. When you walk in, you walk through what looks like a turnstile. You let it scan your iPhone's or your mobile device's face. It gives you a little green light. You move on. You do your shopping. You fill your bag. You walk out. And the moment you walk out, you get a printout on your phone of all the items that you've just purchased. And that's a revolutionary thing to have happen. And imagine it translating into everything else. The amount of money that'll be saved in terms of labor costs is ridiculous. And this is why I think, and there's already stores like this exist. If you want to go ahead and Google it, Amazon now has stores, physical stores. I think there's one in Seattle if you'd like to go try it out and you're in that area. But they're planning on moving these things into all sorts of neighborhoods. And if you think it's only going to be an Amazon Go, I guess is what it's called. If you want to make a guess on whether it's just going to be Amazon putting this sort of technology out, no. It's going to be Safeway. It's going to be Target. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be Walmart. It's going to be all the places that are looking to save some money. And suddenly they'll be able to reclaim some real estate inside of their businesses because you're not going to have 15 checkout aisles at Target anymore. You're going to have simply a turnstile that folks walk through and do their thing. And you're going to end up loving it because of the convenience. You're going to hate it because of the jobs that get lost, but you're going to love it because it's going to be so much easier. It's going to cut down your time. So the payoff is just too high. Now, there's going to be tons of pushback to this from, I'm sure, unions and other areas of the country and those types of things. But I don't think anything can slow this down. This is technology that's going to revolutionize how you buy everything. And I think it's a huge deal in terms of what we need to be aware of moving forward, of what employment and unemployment look like. What kind of jobs are out there down the road for folks who are just starting out or folks who are looking to enter the workforce. And this is absolutely going to be fueled by these new laws that we have, particularly here in California, where by the year 2020, the minimum wage is going to go up to $15 an hour. Or was it $20? I can't remember. There was a recent increase. I think I actually have an article on it. Again, all the articles I'm discussing today are going to be in the show notes for today's show. So if you want to be able to read the details on any of these, please feel free to do so. I also wanted to share with you a story how Foxconn, now those are the folks who build smartphones in China, they've cut 60,000 factory jobs and replaced them with robots. Automated manufacturing systems. So just one more example. We've actually talked about this one before, but I wanted to remind everyone that was happening because bottom line also is a lot of these things that are being done now through automation. Think about what your job is. Think about whether or not it's something that could easily be automated, because this is a snowball thing. This isn't something that takes place over decades because of the innovations that are being put into place here. This really is going to move as fast as the software moves. And software moves fast. Once you've got physical systems that can accept code and are designed to do anything that it's told to by the code. In other words, we're not making robots that specifically just do a certain thing. These are typically robots being made that would be suitable for a lot of different uses. They just happen to be programmed to do the smartphone thing, for instance, or they may have a specific tool attached to their arm to do some specific things. But again, controlling that special thing is software. So this is something I think that's going to snowball a lot, particularly given what's going on with a lot of the minimum wage things happening. And what's really painful about that is it's the folks who don't have more difficult to acquire skills. It's entry-level folks who are going to be stung most by this stuff. But it also means that even higher-end jobs. Now, up until now, the discussion for us on this show has been about it hampering folks from entering into the workforce. But what's also interesting, if you were to go out and do a search on jobs most likely to be replaced by automation or robots, and then limit it to just the last year, you're going to find dozens of different jobs that are listed on each article. What's also interesting is you're going to find very little overlap between those articles. So if you go through and read all of these articles, what you're going to find is there may be one article that talks about 8 jobs that are going to get replaced in the next year to automation, 18 jobs that are going to be replaced soon due to automation. And then you cross-check those two articles, you're probably going to find that they probably don't share any of the same jobs, but each of them sounds pretty correct in their estimation of these jobs going away because of automation. Do that enough, and you're going to start to realize the broad applications of these things that are going to dramatically impact the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, we started this conversation just with automated driving, and the more I've looked into it, the more interesting it's been and the more impactful it's clearly going to be. Now, there was one article I came across, 18 jobs being replaced by robots, that I found to be very interesting, and I thought I'd run down that list and see what's on it, because it actually had some more interesting jobs on it. Some that we clearly already know have been going away. They've been going away for years, but it's got some others that are a little bit more surprising, that are not what you would describe as entry-level jobs. So I thought we'd go ahead and run through those. And again, as always, this will be posted to the show notes of today's show at therebelbroker.com if you'd like to check them out for yourself. And of course, I invite you to head over to Google and Google this topic yourself and just see how creepy the list is, because some of it's not all of it is entry-level stuff. A lot of it is very skilled type stuff. A lot of it is even computer science related type stuff. So it's an interesting list that I think is good for you to be aware of. We'll go ahead and jump into that list when we come back, but we're going to take a quick break right now, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right. Aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about the continually changing face of employment. We just talked about unemployment numbers the other day to try to get more of a realistic look at them. And I think it's appropriate to go over what we're seeing in terms of how the employment world is changing and the fact that I think we're going to see a ton of changes relatively soon in a lot of different industries. We just talked about Amazon Go, which is obviously ready for public consumption technology. It's already in the world, being used in Seattle. You can go check it out if you're in that area. I'm sure it's being piloted in some other areas as well. But this represents a huge jump forward that isn't going to just be at Amazon stores. When this software technology sort of makes a splash, it'll be everywhere. But I came across an article that had an interesting sort of rundown on what they thought the 18 jobs that will be replaced by robots. It comes to us from 24/7 Wall Street, and I thought it'd be fun just to run down them. Number 18 on their list is statistical assistants. Now, these are folks who, as part of their job or their duties, include compiling reports and charts, entering and analyzing data, and running calculations. And not only is the process of analyzing this data being automated, but the collection of it is being automated so that their jobs are being replaced entirely. Median annual wage for this job is $42,700. Projected loss from 2014 to 2024 is down 10.9%. In 2014, there'll be 16,600, and it'll be down to 14,800 according to these guys by 2024. It wouldn't surprise me if that number, these are dramatically accelerated. I'd guess that these jobs are dramatically hit earlier than they're talking about. Number 17 on their list, announcers. Let's see. Demand for radio program hosts will likely drop as more radio stations use pre-recorded segments that can be used in multiple geographies. In addition to that, audio, the verbal emulation, Siri, all these various things you already interact with on a day-to-day basis are going to dynamically work between songs to introduce the next song, talk about the last song, and it's all going to sound very natural. There are plenty of text-to-speech or sort of adaptive speech mechanisms that already exist that create very realistic sounding audio that'll clearly be something that becomes more mainstream. Number 16, and this is one that's been going away for years. I would argue that these folks are on their last legs already. Number 16 is travel agents. According to this list, let's see, number 15 on the list, printing press operators. For a whole lot of reasons, those folks' jobs are going to be going away, not only because things in print are going to suffer, though I think they'll always be around to one extent or another, but the equipment, the printing presses themselves are getting to the point where they don't need operators to be used. A lot of the involvement there not only is getting to the point where they can run, you simply send them a job and it just happens, but the number of folks necessary to do the job is decreasing. Number 14, print binding and finishing workers. This kind of goes along with the changes in the newspaper industry we just talked about with digital distribution and those types of things. But again, the equipment used to even do this stuff is also getting to the point where you don't need as many folks involved in generating the stuff that's produced. Correspondence clerks. Due to advances in technology and computer software, correspondence clerks are quickly becoming a job of a bygone era. The responsibilities of a correspondence clerk typically include composing letters on behalf of a business or organization to notify relevant parties of such issues as damage claims, delinquent accounts, invoices, service claims. I'm actually stunned this one's even still considered to be on the list, simply because who hasn't gotten that generic letter to let us know about something being delinquent for something? So I would guess that this job is already gone for the most part. Number 12, office machine operators, except computer. Office machine operators can have a number of responsibilities. Copy technicians, copy center operators, and print center specialists are all examples of office machine operators. What's interesting is obviously these are jobs that are going away in terms of not having dedicated people for this. Most of us simply have a copy machine in the office that we can send stuff to. But what's also interesting here is the advances in technology have introduced machines that are very self-correcting and don't need as much service. So the amount of time spent per machine for service has declined, which means the number of people necessary to service them gets decreased as well. Number 11, meter readers for utilities. This is one that's actually happened in my community. In fact, the smart meters are things that a lot of folks that I've dealt with in real estate have been very upset about, but it makes it possible for these things to be read without anyone having to come up and read it. There are some cities like Sunnyvale where it's become so quick to read that they've been able to cut the head count of meter readers in half. The way they do it is they simply drive down the street and wirelessly connect to your meter. And so no one has to jump out of the car and run up and look at your meter anymore. Motion picture projectionists. Why this is on this list, I have no idea. But in addition to the number of them waning, digital distribution of movies now makes it more like watching a movie on your computer than having to run a projector. You don't have to thread anything. You don't have to worry about any of these things that projectionists used to worry about. The technology adapts, automatically handles everything, and it's simply a file that gets played through a digital projector. Number 9 on their list, mail clerks and mail machine operators, except the Postal Service. Now, this is another thing that I think gets handled pretty much out of hand by folks. They've been absorbed into other jobs, right? Maybe the receptionist at your place where you work handles this. But mail sorting machine technology has improved, become less expensive. More companies are replacing their mail clerks with machines. So if you worked for a very large corporation that had a mail room, odds are that's being run now not by a group of folks going through the mail. It's being run by 1 or 2 folks that are feeding letters through a machine that continues to improve how it does what it does through, you guessed it, software upgrades. Number 8, computer operators. This is an interesting one. Like many disappearing jobs, increasingly sophisticated software is reducing the need for workers in the profession. This is interesting because these are the folks who tend to be in IT, the folks behind the scenes who get your servers back up and running when they go down, that repair your email, that make sure everything's working. What's interesting about this is this refers specifically to, and I happen to have a client who just lost his job to this. They downsized their IT folks by, I think it was 30%, because they had brought in a system that was self-healing. So with all of these servers, there's built-in scripts that recognize when things are going wrong. So when there's a problem with the email server, it knows what steps to run through to remedy the problem, whether it's as drastic as restarting the service or whatever else. But it's a self-healing system, so that means there's less time necessary for these IT folks to be called in to do the work. They'll get a notice that it's been done, and then they'll get a report called a health check on the service telling them it went bad, the system automatically did this, we now see a positive health check or a past health check, and no one ever needs to interact with it. No human needs to actually spend any time doing anything. The system self-healed, so to speak. That one's one to keep in mind because these are typically jobs that we thought were bulletproof for a very long time. The technology is now to the point where that's not the case, where a lot of these systems can be designed to self-repair. Number 7, parking enforcement workers. By 2024, there will be only about 7,400 parking enforcement attendants, a 20.8% decline. As is the case with many rapidly disappearing jobs, parking enforcement workers are being replaced by machines and automated systems. Electronic Ticketing systems and parking garages with automatic barriers are likely putting a dent in the ranks of parking enforcement workers nationwide. There was even some technology I saw where parking meters were designed now to be able to recognize when there was a car in the spot for which it is designated. And if it detects that there is a car parked in that spot for a certain set period of time without having any money having been assigned to the parking meter, it'll then send the data relating to your car in and generate a ticket without a human being ever being involved. Let's see, what was next? 6, desktop publishers. I think this is very interesting. Still a lot of companies hire folks to do their desktop publishings. They're responsible for the design of an organization's printed materials, advertisements, brochures, newsletters, and forms. This is an area people thought would be absolutely bulletproof for a long time. However, as internal communications with big companies get consolidated online and publish other materials electronically, the demand for desktop publishers is likely declining. Employment in the occupation is expected to fall by 21% over the next 10 years. Number 5, pre-press technicians and workers. These are the folks who are responsible for proofreading, positioning, and arranging text and graphic content that is to be printed. And this isn't just the folks who are doing it in a physical environment like the way you used to lay out newspapers. This includes folks doing this digitally, because now scripts can run that will do it automatically, that will check the spelling and the grammar, that will make sure everything is laid out in a visually appealing way. Things that used to be thought of as could only be done by a human are absolutely being done by software that's sensing what the right layout is. Number 4 on the list, postal service workers. There's already budget cuts coming to the Postal Service for good reason if you read up on what's going on there. But technological advances are going to make it very easy to do so without diminishing service. Automated sorting machines are going to decrease the demand for workers in the post office. We already talked about the technology of sorting machines, but a number of other technological advances will further decrease the volume of mail that postal workers deliver and process. Increasing use of everyday conveniences such as online bill pay services and email will also contribute considerably to the decrease. Number 3 on the list, photographic process workers and processing machine operators. So this includes the folks who did the old school stuff and even the folks who do the new school stuff, whether it's digital or old school. And this is happening simply because the machines are getting smarter. Now, usually it requires a machine upgrade, but then again, it becomes a function of the software. So now, if you go to an online provider of prints, let's say you've got a great photo, you took it with your iPhone, you want a physical photo that you're going to hang on your wall, the odds are that not a single human being will have been involved in that process from the moment you clicked send, you uploaded your picture, you clicked send, it went through a process, went into a machine, got printed, came out the other end. The only thing that may have happened involving a human would be the wrapping it to be shipped and then getting mailed. And as we've already talked about with some of these previous ones, even that now can be automated. Number 2, switchboard operators, including answering services. Voice recognition technology can recognize human speech and effectively direct calls. Cell phones are also now ubiquitous, lowering the demand for hotel switchboard operators as well as jobs. This is, again, one that's a very obvious solution, but the big thing here is the interactivity. You're going to be able to have a conversation back and forth with the software. Now, it's all very annoying now, the trees that we have to go through to push buttons and whatnot, but that's going to shift more and more into a conversationally based experience as we move forward with this technology that can recognize what you're saying and then respond appropriately. Number 1 on the list, telephone operators. How this isn't already a well-known thing, I don't know. But yeah, these folks are just going to find more and more reductions. In fact, there's going to be about a 50% drop in their numbers over the next 10 years, and I think that all makes sense. Now, so that's their quick list that we just ran through. Again, Google it, and what you're going to... I read 5 articles on this subject leading up to today's show. In terms of overlap, I think there was only 2 or 3 jobs that really kind of fit being an overlap, and it was very, very interesting. If you decided you wanted to go out and create a unified list, take all the various articles and create one single list of all the jobs that different folks from different outlets indicate are going to be gone over the next year to 10 years, it is an extremely long list, and it should really make people think. Now, the next story I wanted to hit, and this is a little bit of a recap, but it just shows what we talked about a year ago is absolutely happening. McDonald's unveils new job-killing self-service machines thanks to fight for $15 an hour. We already talked about this when this law was first passed. This was one of the first things we talked about. But McDonald's has rolled out a shiny new line of self-service machines that allow you to order your food without the need for employees at a register. They're already starting to roll it out. It's already starting to happen. Let's see. One quote here is Renzi at Forbes on Tuesday wrote, quote, "It brings me no joy to write these words. The push for a $15 starter wage has negatively impacted the career prospects of employees who are just getting started in the workforce while extinguishing the businesses that employed them. I wish it were not so, but it's important to document these consequences, lest policymakers elsewhere decide that the $15 movement is worth embracing." According to this article, McDonald's certainly had trouble in cities featuring the raised wage. It was a minor bump in the road that they could afford to spend their way out of. Sadly, not every business has the capital this massive chain does, and businesses and workers will both suffer for it. So that was a topic I thought was interesting. That was a sentence that implies a lot. It implies a need. Now, what's something we try to figure out here in the world of real estate? Figure out where the need is. Where is the unsatisfied demand for a solution to a problem? And in our case, it's housing, that offers certain amenities and will cater to the largest number of people to make it the most desirable, available with what they want. Well, that sentence alone tells you that while McDonald's may be rolling their own and spending a lot on getting this technology into their shops, it sure does present an amazing opportunity for some entrepreneur who wants to create systems that can be more generic. Because really, what are we talking about here? There is nothing specific to McDonald's about a kiosk. Their kiosk is a screen with buttons. So if it's not, the real difference of whether or not you're going to identify it as a McDonald's kiosk or a Burger King kiosk is simply the logo that appears on the screen when you're doing the ordering. So I think you're going to find this to be the way it's done in fast food restaurants within the next 3 to 5 years. The only problem is going to be rolling the technology out. I wouldn't be surprised if drive-through becomes entirely a digital experience. You'll still speak what you want, but you'll also probably have the backup option of reaching out and touching a screen. Simply because the cost-benefit ratio now is to the point where it will make financial sense to do this. And all a smart entrepreneur has to do is calibrate themselves to this idea of, as long as my system over the course of a year costs a fast food restaurant less than the equivalent of a $15 an hour employee, I will make money, right? So that's the bar that you have to set. And there's no question in my mind that using a startup attitude and using off-the-shelf stuff that these folks can do that. So I think it's going to represent a huge hit, or at the very least, a huge change to what employment is in terms of a lot of different services that we've become used to. Now, that was it for the stories relating to this. In terms of what should we be thinking about? I think when you weave this into the realities we talked about relating to employment the other day, I think that what we need to do is understand that we're probably not going to see a lot of growth in the number of folks who can afford to buy over the next, well, we may see a short-term increase, but then as time moves on, there's going to be a period where folks simply can't do it. There's going to be too many folks that are caught in this transition, and we're going to see some level of impact on the folks who can afford to buy. It may push some folks to the point where they need to sell, so there'll be sort of two elements as part of it. But I think this is going to be an interesting thing to see, and hopefully all of you will be prepared for it. I want you all to be prepared for it. But I think it presents a situation where the solution that might be embraced might be the one we've already seen them embracing. Now, granted, we need to see more development of housing units, but what they seem to be coming down on is the side of let's enable more people to purchase, even though they're not as qualified as they should be. And that would be a bad thing. It's already happening, but pressures like this are likely just to make it worse. So we'll have to see. It could push us into another very bad situation in terms of downturns in the market, but it could also simply feed the buyer pool more. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. I don't think this is something that's affecting us in the next 6 months. I think this is sort of a longer view, something to be prepared for over the course of several years as opposed to over the next 12 months. But I wanted to share it with you. I think it's interesting to contemplate, and I hope it has given you something to bounce around in your head that might just keep you looking a little bit more into it, getting a little bit more information, and seeing if you don't have a strategy that might work through this. Now, I do appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. I hope I've given you something valuable to think about in return. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I'll talk to y'all next time.